As long as you don't hit the piano, we're all right.
Sun's gonna rise, heart's gonna wait.
Muhammad Ali shocks everyone with rare speech about Elvis Presley. It began with silence, the kind that falls over a crowded room when someone says something nobody expects. Reporters had gathered that afternoon to talk about boxing, about politics, about the next fight. But when Muhammad Ali stepped to the microphone, he didn't mention an opponent or training or victory. He said one word that froze the room: Elvis. Every camera shifted. Every pen stopped scratching. Ali looked out over the sea of reporters and repeated himself, his voice low and measured. Elvis Presley was a brother in struggle. The crowd blinked, confused. To them, these were two different universes. The heavyweight champion of the world, defiant and political, speaking about the king of rock and roll, the symbol of American fame. What could one possibly have to do with the other? Ali didn't rush to explain. He just stared down at the microphones for a moment, almost as if he were gathering courage. People laughed at him, he said softly, like they laugh at me. The room went still. Even the flashbulbs paused. Ali wasn't reciting a speech. He was confessing something. He talked about watching Elvis from afar, seeing the way the world lifted him up and then tore him apart. He said they made him a king, then punished him for wearing the crown. Nobody in that room had ever heard Muhammad Ali talk like that before. This was the same man who could fill arenas with his voice, who floated through words like he floated through punches. But now his tone was different, quieter, heavier. He explained that when Elvis died, he couldn't bring himself to speak for days. Ali said, "When I heard he was gone, I stayed in my room. I prayed for him because I knew that kind of loneliness." Some reporters wrote that Ali seemed distant that week, almost haunted. They thought he was mourning a celebrity, but he wasn't. He was mourning a reflection. Both men had become prisoners of their own image, one in the boxing ring, the other in the gold cage of fame. And both had learned what it felt like to be worshipped and misunderstood at the same time. Ali recalled a moment years earlier when he'd met Elvis briefly, backstage in Las Vegas. Elvis had smiled, called him champ, and said he admired his courage. Ali said, "He looked tired, man. Not weak, just tired in the soul." And that stuck with him, because Ali understood that look. As he spoke, the reporters began to realize this wasn't about music or boxing. It was about survival. Ali said, "He fought his war with songs. I fought mine with words. But it's the same fight. Trying to stay yourself when the world keeps pulling pieces off of you." There was a quiet murmur in the room. Nobody knew what to write. This wasn't headline material. It was something deeper, rawer. Ali leaned closer to the microphone and whispered, "They say he was the king. But the truth is, he was a servant, serving everyone else's dream until there was nothing left of his own." For a moment, he just stood there, eyes lowered. Then he smiled, not the showman's grin the world knew, but a small, sad smile that came from understanding people think fame makes you free, he said. "It don't. It just builds a bigger cage." The reporters didn't interrupt. Nobody dared. Ali ended his thoughts with a line that carried the weight of both men's legacies. "Don't ever laugh at a man who's fighting to keep his soul, because the louder the crowd cheers, the harder that fight gets." And with that, he stepped away from the podium. No closing words, no slogans, no rhymes, just the echo of his voice hanging in the air like the last bell of a long round. In that silence, something shifted. For the first time, the world saw that behind the fists and the footwork, Muhammad Ali understood what Elvis Presley had lived through. The endless tug-of-war between the man you are and the legend they demand. And though no one realized it then, that short, trembling moment would become one of Ali's rarest confessions. The day the greatest bowed his head, not to an idol, but to a man who carried the same crown and the same curse. It was a humid evening in Memphis, sometime in the mid-70s, when the most unlikely meeting took place. Muhammad Ali, the people's champion, walking through the quiet back halls of Graceland. No reporters, no flashing bulbs, just two men who had spent their entire lives in front of crowds finally meeting where no one could see them. Ali wasn't there to be impressed. He'd seen every kind of fame there was. But Elvis, the man he'd grown up hearing on the radio, had asked to talk not about boxing, not about politics, about life. When Ali arrived, Elvis greeted him like an old friend. No showmanship, no jumpsuits, just a man in a plain shirt with tired eyes that told their own story. Ali later described that first handshake. His hand was soft, he said, but his eyes were fighting something. They sat down in the den, two kings without their crowns, and for a while, they didn't speak at all. The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that only two men who understand each other can share. Finally, Elvis broke it. "Champ," he said, "you ever wake up and not recognize the man in the mirror?" Ali laughed softly. "Every day I've been called the greatest," he said, "but sometimes I feel the smallest." Two men who had been turned into symbols, finally finding a way to speak human again. When it was time to leave, Elvis walked Ali to the door. He said, "You know, champ, you got a light in you. Don't let him take it." Ali smiled. "Same goes for you, King. But be careful. The brighter you shine, the more they want to burn you." They shook hands one more time, and this time it wasn't soft. It was steady. Two men sealing an unspoken pact. Years later, Ali would recall that night and say, "He was searching for peace, man. Just like I was. Different battles, same war." That meeting would never make headlines. There were no photographs, no recordings, just memory. But in that quiet room in Memphis, two of the most famous men on earth laid down their crowns for one night and saw in each other the truth that neither fame nor power could ever buy: the comfort of being understood. August 1977. The world woke up to the news that Elvis Presley was gone. Radio stations stopped mid-song, television anchors spoke in hushed voices, and across America, something strange happened. People who had mocked him, imitated him, or forgotten him suddenly cried for him. But in Chicago, Muhammad Ali didn't say a word. For 2 days, the most outspoken man in America, the man who'd never run from a microphone, stayed silent. Reporters camped outside his hotel, waiting for the usual poetic soundbite. But when Ali finally came out, he didn't talk like a showman. He spoke like a friend mourning a soldier. They asked, "Champ, what do you think of Elvis's death?" Ali paused for a long time, eyes lowered, and said quietly, "I think you all never knew him." It wasn't anger in his voice, it was disappointment. The kind that comes from watching the world destroy a man, then pretend to love him when he's gone. Ali said, "You laughed at him like you laugh at me, because you don't understand pain." That line sent a hush through the crowd. The same reporters who once cheered when Ali was banned from boxing now found themselves facing the mirror he'd just held up. He went on, choosing every word carefully. Elvis fought a war too. Not in Vietnam, not in the ring. His war was inside his own heart, and the people who made him a king, they were the same ones who built his prison. Some journalists scribbled in confusion, unsure what story they were hearing. But Ali wasn't talking to them. He was talking to himself, to the memory of a man who had once confessed his weariness behind closed doors. Ali said, He fought his war with a microphone. I fought mine with my mouth. But both of us fought to stay ourselves, while the world kept trying to change us. It wasn't the first time Ali had drawn parallels between fame and slavery. He used to say, "A man who's owned by his fans ain't free." That day, he turned that same truth toward Elvis. He wasn't no rebel, Ali said. He was a servant, serving the crowd, serving the money, serving a world that didn't care about the man under the crown. Then Ali's voice cracked just a little. Not weakness, but emotion. "You call him the king," he said, "but he died a servant." Nobody in that press room had words after that. For once, the loudest man on earth spoke softly enough to be heard. Ali didn't stop there. He talked about how Elvis had been criticized for losing himself in excess, for the jumpsuits, the pills, the isolation, but Ali saw it differently. He wasn't weak, he said. He was human. Fame ain't food for the soul. It's poison when you're starving for love. It was an unexpected sermon, but it was one only Ali could preach. He knew what it meant to be loved and hated in the same breath. He knew the loneliness of hotel rooms, the exhaustion of being everyone's hero but no one's friend. "Y'all called him a symbol," he said, "but he was just a man. And you broke him because you wanted him to stay perfect." Ali paused, his eyes moving over the crowd. "You break every man you put on a throne," he added, "and one day, the throne breaks you back." Reporters tried to pull him back to boxing, asking if he'd be fighting again soon. Ali just smiled sadly. He said, "You think fighting's about fists, it's about spirit." Elvis had that spirit. He just ran out of breath before the bell. Then he said something that few caught on tape, but those who did never forgot it. "I know what he felt," Ali whispered, "because I'm feeling it now." That one line, half confession, half prophecy, lingered long after he walked away. To the cameras, Ali had always been the man who could talk circles around anyone. But this time, he wasn't trying to win an argument. He was defending a soul, and maybe, in doing that, he was defending his own. As the days passed, fans filled Graceland, leaving flowers, letters, and tears. But far away, Ali prayed quietly. He asked God to give Elvis peace, the kind neither of them had ever truly known on earth. Later, he told a close friend, "People die in different ways. Some from bullets, some from pills, and some from love that's too heavy to carry." When asked why Elvis's death hit him so hard, Ali replied, "Because we both live for the crowd, and the crowd don't live for you back." He saw the same story repeating, the same applause that lifts you up until it buries you. That speech, that quiet defense, was rarely shown on television. Networks clipped it down, missing its heart. But for those who heard the full thing, it was unforgettable. A boxer standing up for a man everyone thought he had nothing in common with, proving that greatness recognizes greatness, even across worlds. Ali ended it the only way he knew how, with honesty. He said, "You can be the greatest, you can be the king, but it still hurts when the world loves what you do more than who you are." And when he walked away that day, there were no cheers, just silence. The kind that comes when the truth hits too close to home. It wasn't just a eulogy for Elvis. It was a warning for everyone who builds their life on applause. A reminder that even the brightest lights fade when they burn alone. In the years that followed, people tried to separate them again. Muhammad Ali, the warrior. Elvis Presley, the entertainer. But history has a way of pairing souls who share the same wounds. Long after both men were gone, their stories began to sound like two verses of the same song. Elvis fought with rhythm and melody. Ali fought with words and motion, but both fought to be seen as men, not monuments. Each had the same burden: to stand before the world as a symbol of something greater than himself, and still hold on to what was left of his heart. Ali once said, "Fame is a trick God plays to test your soul." Elvis lived that test every night. Under the lights, his face glowed with charm, but behind the curtain, he was just another man asking the same questions Ali asked in the ring. Who am I when the noise stops? Who am I when they stop clapping? They were two sons of the South, raised on struggle, baptized by attention, and chained to expectation. Both carried a world's projection, Ali as the defiant black man who refused to bow, Elvis as the white Southern boy who carried the sound of black gospel into every living room in America, and both paid for it. Elvis was punished for being too soft-hearted, too trusting, too lonely to say no. Ali was punished for being too outspoken, too proud, too fearless to back down. Different sins, same sentence, the price of staying true to themselves in a world that demanded entertainment over truth. Ali admired Elvis for something few people noticed: the courage to keep performing even when his body and mind were begging for rest. He said, "That man didn't quit. His stage was a ring, and he went the distance." Elvis admired Ali for the very thing he never found: the strength to speak his mind without apology. Behind closed doors, he told friends that Ali's conviction gave him hope. "He ain't scared to lose love," Elvis said once. "He just wants to stay real." That was the secret thread connecting them. Both had learned that real love, from God, from people, from self, could only exist when you stop pretending. But fame is built on pretending. Ali fought to prove he wasn't owned by America's system. Elvis fought to prove he wasn't owned by his own success. In the end, both men lost their health fighting for their souls, but they never surrendered their hearts. When Ali's hands began to tremble from Parkinson's, he joked that maybe God gave him shaking hands so the world could see he wasn't untouchable anymore. When Elvis's voice began to tremble, he still sang gospel songs until the final months, not for applause, but for forgiveness. They both understood something that few stars ever do: greatness isn't about winning. It's about enduring, about holding faith when everyone's already written your ending. That's why Ali's words after Elvis's death still echo decades later. "You can be the king or the greatest," he said, "but if the world don't let you rest, you better find peace before it's too late." He wasn't just talking about Elvis anymore. He was talking to every man who ever carried a dream too heavy for his shoulders. To every artist, athlete, or believer who traded pieces of their soul for a crown that couldn't save them. Two kings, one burden. One sang to remind the world what love sounded like. The other spoke to remind the world what courage looked like. Both carried the same message in different languages: that greatness means nothing without grace. And when people ask why Muhammad Ali defended Elvis so fiercely, the answer is simple. He saw himself. The same loneliness, the same exhaustion, the same desperate need to be more than what the world had turned him into. In the end, both men found peace the same way they found fame: by giving everything they had. Elvis gave his voice. Ali gave his words. And together, they left behind a reminder that the cost of glory is high, but the value of compassion is higher. Because the world will always remember their crowns, but only the quiet-hearted will remember their cross. If you believe greatness isn't measured by power, but by how much truth a man can carry, share this story. Tell us below. What do you think Muhammad Ali saw in Elvis Presley that the world missed? Their fight was never against each other. It was for understanding.